Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're jumping into a pretty radical idea from the source material. It's a proposed shift away from our current consumption-heavy GDP-focused economy to something they're calling the stewardship economy.
Yeah, and it's a shift born out of necessity, right? I mean, the current model, this linear consumption path, it just pushes all these hidden costs onto society.
Hidden costs like what?
Well, the sources are pretty direct. They point to planned obsolescence, literally designing things to fail. And that externalizes huge burdens like decaying mental health and family fragmentation. They actually put a number on it.
They did, an estimated $112 billion every year.
It's a staggering figure.
It is. So the core question for this deep dive is pretty provocative. What if intentionally making less stuff actually made a nation wealthier and, happier?
Okay, so let's get into how this would even work.
Well, to start, you have to change the industrial rulebook itself. The whole system right now rewards making things fast and cheap. The sources propose revising the North American Industry Classification System, the NAICS codes. So you're talking about creating totally new official categories for manufacturing. Things like, longevity manufacturing for modular goods, and maybe something like software stewardship.
Exactly. Mandating, say, 10 years or more of updates and security patches, it changes the entire goal. And if durability is the new goal, the worker's role has to change.
From just an assembler to more of a steward.
Right. And that's where the maintenance, repair, and operations, the MRO bridge, comes in.
Yeah.
You're actively redirecting the workforce toward revitalizing and repairing what we already have.
That makes sense for labor, but the sources introduce a really radical financial idea to curb what they call artificial wants. The attention tax. I mean, how do you even sell a high Pigouvian tax like that politically? Won't it just crush advertising?
That's the critical point. It's not a blanket tax. It's high, yes, but it's placed specifically on non-educational ads for products in these new, long-lasting, frozen sectors. The whole idea is to make companies pay for the social cost of commodifying our attention. The revenue then goes to debt reduction.
Okay, so if you're taxing the creation of artificial desire, you can't really use factory output as your main metric for success anymore, can you?
You can't. And that leads to the next big filler, the National Wellness Index, or NWI. It's inspired by Bhutan's gross national happiness idea, so it tracks things like time use and psychological health.
And the baseline for that is pretty grim. The sources cite adult depression prevalence in 2023 at, 29%?
A staggering number. It shows you just how poorly GDP measures actual well-being. And this is where it gets really interesting, because the NWI links directly to the invisible economy.
All the unpaid care work, childcare, elder care, stuff that contributes, up to 9% of global GDP that just isn't counted anywhere.
Precisely. The stewardship economy tries to formalize this with a family stewardship stipend, the FSS. It monetizes that care work with a stewardship wage. It's economic recognition, not a handout. And this creates what they call the double dividend.
Right, and the numbers here are pretty clear. A worker who's displaced from a factory, they can shift to care and home maintenance and see a net increase in their own liquidity of around $25,000 a year.
It proves that care and maintenance are incredibly high-value economic activities.
So if the U.S. is making fewer disposable goods at home, the entire trade strategy has to pivot.
It has to. You move to what the sources call the intangible balance. You stop exporting so many physical things and start exporting high-margin intellectual property, which was already hitting nearly $130 billion in 2022, and sophisticated maintenance SaaS software.
And to protect your domestic industries that are now built for longevity, you put up a barrier against the cheap stuff designed to fail.
A quality tariff, yeah.
Sure.
Think of it as a planned obsolescence rate, maybe 50%, on any import that doesn't meet repairability standards. It's basically extending the idea of a carbon border tax to product durability.
So after all this massive restructuring, what's the ultimate gain for the country?
By year 5, the model projects a huge reduction in the national debt, from around $34 trillion down to $28 trillion. And maybe counterintuitively, a rise in GDP per capita from $80,000 to over $90,000, all driven by that newly monetized care work and IP exports.
It's a total redefinition of prosperity, then. Wealth measured by the quality of what you keep, not the volume of what you churn through. But that leaves one massive practical hurdle, what the sources call the dormancy challenge. If your factories are mostly idle because everything lasts forever, how does the nation avoid becoming industrially weak? The proposed solution is an active reserve policy, where factories have to run at 5% capacity on a rotating drill basis. So the final question for you to think about is this. Can a system like that truly keep a nation semper paratus always ready without ultimately undermining the core goal of longevity?